in 129 years, the only cyclone to hit this region happens, and we have to postpone the session. So I think that's again a little bit about fate, which is not in our hands.
Yes.
So we'll talk about a little bit of these kind of situations also as we go along in the session. So I think to begin with, I'll give a small introduction about myself. I began my career in the corporate world. So I have about over 16 years of experience in human resources across different companies. In most places, I realized I was something like a startup specialist where I would set up the team in place and grow it out and then move on. And yeah, so I still draw a lot of inspiration, and a lot of examples that I would probably take today would be from my corporate world experience in that sense. Um, for me, it was a very natural transition to move into this space where to do the sort of work that I'm doing right now. Uh, it it just kind of was a very natural transition where working with people, looking after the people aspect of it, just helped me move into this space. And but it wasn't a very immediate transition. It wasn't like it happens in a moment and it's done. Rather, for me, it was something where I was kind of studying, practicing in the stealth mode since way back since 2007. And then since 2014, I actually moved off into this work where I did my yoga teacher's training and started practicing all my therapies. And this was at that point of time, I discovered the systemic work. So the basis of what we are talking about is based on the systemic work that I have practiced so far. Uh, it is the brainchild, or more than the brainchild, it's the creation of a German psychotherapist by the name of Bert Hellinger, who's no more, unfortunately. He passed away in 2019. And the approach that we take over here is, instead of looking at something as a very small tiny bit which is not working, we take a very systemic approach to it. So we try to see everything in its entirety here. What this helps us do is, if you're just focused only on this bit, we are too absorbed here, what's happening. And we sort of lose the larger picture. This is just as, I mean, if, let's say, for example, your car breaks down and you just focus only one tiny bit of the motor which is not working, but you forget to see where is it actually coming in from? What is the seed reason from where it comes? What is the root of it? Till we have not seen the picture in the entirety, we can't be sure whether there will be a breakdown again or not. So that's just what the work is, just a little bit in brief. So let's come on to the topic that we are here today for, which is nothing by chance, connecting the dots of your life. So what is the story here, and how does fate play a role here? Now, interestingly, if you look at the dictionary meaning of fate, we're looking at something. Fate actually means where it's something which is beyond our control, something which is far larger than us, over which we don't have much of a control. And we don't use the word fate regarding a very positive situation in life. We don't say that, okay, I was fated to get that really fantastic dream job that I got. We rather use it in the aspect where, oh, it was fate that this did not happen. So it's fated in that way. And even when I use the word fate, I am not sure, but you can feel the heaviness of the energy there. So there's a lot happening there. I'll just take a very small example here. So when I was in my growing up years, rather the first 3 years of my life, my father has worked in the forest department. So I have stayed in a place which was a dense forest, literally no civilization in a good 10-15 kilometer radius or more than that. And when I was that young child, I always felt that the house that we lived in was a huge place. And for me, it was like, I used to look up at the ceiling and I used to feel like, whoa, this is really huge. And then there was this very small kacha rasta right in front of the house. And I used to feel it's like the biggest road that I have ever been on. And then later on, when we moved into the city, And I grew up, and then after many years, we just decided impromptu to kind of take a vacation to this place that we had lived. And guess what? When I went back, I was actually anticipating this huge house, and this huge street, and everything was going to be big and large sized. But when I went to that place, I must say I was quite disappointed, because the moment inside the house, it felt too small. And when I was standing there with my parents and my brother, and I sort of looked around at everybody, and I felt like, did we all really fit into this really small house? There was literally no room for any of us to move around. And then I see the street outside the house, and it was a very small road. And I think that's the moment there was a kind of a perspective which came in, which is, as a child, it was very big for me. But as a grown up, it had come into its own right size, the way it is actually. And coming to the topic of fate, this is something similar here. When we look at something in our life which looks much larger than size for us, which seems something which is way beyond us, and it creates the sense of helplessness within us, which means we are not looking at something which is eye to eye. Eye to eye is adult to adult. I am equal, you all equal. We are looking at each other from that space. And when something looks very towering and very, very huge for us, chances are we are looking at something more there. Chances are we are looking at something which has the baggage of the past. And by the past, I mean not just our individual past, but maybe the past of the family system, maybe the past of the community that we live in, maybe the past of all humanity. We do not know what is touching us and striking those chords for us at what moment. So this is in brief our encounter with fate in a way, where I will just take a moment to read out as to how Carl Jung, the very famous Swiss psychotherapist, how he has described fate. He says, fate, he says, unless you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it as your fate. So the components of fate that we are looking about here is something which is not known to our intellect, something which is beyond our sphere of consciousness here, something which is like a jumble from the past, which we are not able to place correctly. It is again like taking an example of, before I learned to drive, it used to be something which used to give me I wasn't sure how it's going to go. And my first few lessons was something which was completely off. So it was literally before getting into the car, there used to be a prayer where I hope everything goes well. I hope I don't crash into somebody. I hope nobody crashes into me. So there were a huge amount of worries, challenges, stress before I got into the car. And then over the years, it became very comfortable for me, to this extent that I could just slip behind the wheel and kind of go into my own space. It was being taken over by itself. So now what happens is the whole part about how to drive a car is completely conscious for me. I know what is to be done. I know how the gears move into what gear and how to move. I don't have to look at something to move from the second to the fourth or to the third. It's now second nature to me. I have learned it. And once it's conscious for me, I am no longer standing on the fate side of thing. I am more in awareness over here. But till I am clueless about it, it falls in the category of fate for me. So here, let's just, let me take another example here. If, for example, you have a piece of paper with you, And if you should decide to make a few holes in the piece of paper there. And so now you have a blank piece of paper with some holes there. And if, for example, if you were to project some light from behind the paper, what would happen? Just think for a moment, everyone, what would happen? What would get projected out? And here in this moment, if you imagine that, the light that will go through is through the holes. Where you have the opaque paper, it's not getting projected forward. But wherever there is a hole there, that's what gets thrown. If you have, let's say, a screen in front of you, that's what gets thrown out on the screen. And so the holes here, in a way, are, if we call it as the unconscious, or we are going to call it as a lack of awareness, or something that's missing, that is what gets projected forward here. So whatever is missing is actually that gets projected forward here. And why is this happening in the first place? This is happening because I think we all look for a completion here. And this is where I would like to talk about us as a complete system here. We are one whole family soul. We are like, and when I use the word family, I'm talking very specifically about our own biological lineage here. I'm talking about the parents, the siblings, if any siblings have passed away, the grandparents, the uncles, the aunts, all the blood relatives. This is what I'm talking about when I am talking about the word family soul. And then when I talk about completeness, anybody who's connected with this family in a very strong bonded way also belongs here. It's like, again, for an example, as an example, if let's say there has been a person in the family, maybe a grandfather who was involved in the Second World War, and he went out to war, and when he went out to war, he came back alive. But there was somebody there who helped him survive. Let's say maybe he had a fellow soldier who gave up his life to save his grandfather's life. This man who has given up his own life to save another person is now also very strongly bonded to the family. And he belongs here in a way. Or, for example, any time where there is a very strong event that happens in the family, which is maybe there is a murder in the family, or maybe a huge amount of fortune or money is lost or taken away by the family member from somebody. Now, these are again, when to use the word fate, these are strong acts of fate. This is all in a way creating this very strong bond between the family. And now we are all like pieces of puzzle there. Even if one goes missing, it cannot actually be left behind because the system demands to be whole. And when somebody goes missing over here, that is the time it becomes like that black hole in the, or the hole in the paper that gets projected forward here. I wonder if any of you have seen this very, very beautiful movie called Coco. It's an English animated movie. I don't know if somebody would just like to type in yes, no, maybe. So, I just kind of get to hear if anyone's seen the movie.
I've seen it, Revati.
Superb. Okay, so there are a lot of no's, and so the benefit of the no's, I'll just give a very snapshot of what this very beautiful movie is about. For me, it kind of really very deeply explains the work that we are about to engage in right now. So it's the movie of a Mexican family, a young boy who loves music. But he comes from a family of people who are cobblers. They make shoes for a living. And he stays in this very big house with all his family members together, his parents, his uncles, his aunts, his grandmother. And so it's like this one big family unit. Now, while this boy simply loves music, the family looks against, is completely anti-music. And they are like, this is something you are not supposed to engage in. And this is one place where they are very harsh. No music means no music. And now, very interestingly, you see the family altar, where all the earlier generations of people are shown there through having their portraits. Their pictures are kept there. So the grandfather, the grandmother, you know, and you can see a very big family picture being created there. It's almost like a movie, like a family tree getting created there. You know, couples, you know, they're just their pictures. Till you see the picture of the great grandmother, and there is the great grandfather who is missing. And now, as you see the movie ahead, as I said, it talks about families here. This young boy is very curious about the great grandfather. And he finds himself, by some strange happening, he finds himself in the land of dead. And in the land of dead, he goes across to meet his great grandfather. And I will just cut to the story at the end of it. Guess who his great grandfather is? What does he do? His great grandfather is a musician. And he goes missing from the family because he gets murdered. And he is completely taken out of the family picture, because keeping the person in the portrait is synonymous with keeping the person in your heart, knowing the person, remembering the person. And now here, the great grandfather has gone completely missing. When he goes missing, the soul of the family is not complete if he continues to stay missing. And in the land of the dead, they show that if nobody remembers you, if nobody keeps you in the portrait, this person from the land of dead will vanish off forever. Now, think about your own family trees for a moment. Think for a moment, are there any people in your family that you do not think about? People in your family whom you know they sort of exist, but you don't talk about them. And there are people, there are connections which are not talked about. See, again, when we use the word energy, this is not some kind of esoteric word. We all at a level know and understand things. I'll take an example. I think when I worked outside in Dubai for a while, I remembered that I worked for this very huge organization which had many different units. And so the team that I worked with, you know, we had a great culture there. And, you know, you felt very, you know, anybody who would walk into our, you know, our office premises where we were located, they would suddenly start feeling so positive. And, you know, you could see from their stride that they're feeling really good about themselves, because this is how the culture was. And then there was this another team where we used to call a unit, where we used to call it as the graveyard unit. And if anybody should walk through the unit, and I remember myself that through this big, huge premise, I'm walking through that place and I am almost, I'm withdrawn. I'm like holding myself tight, and a very strange, like, you know, a strange way of being here. And it was a place where the general culture was not very respectful towards people. There was a lot of hiring and firing happening, and, you know, no reasons for given to people before sacking them. And it was like sort of like a very authoritarian way of life there. Now, all these people that I'm talking about were very much logical people. They did not understand the word energy, but yet they were able to pick up the vibe of the place. And that is exactly the same way which is there with all of us. Imagine if you walk into a room where there is a big fight happening. Two people are at each other's throats and they want to just kill each other. And just when you enter, they have separated out. 9 out of 10 chances, you will still feel that there was something happening in this place. And so, if this is what we can feel about people or circumstances or situations or environments, which are not even so deeply into our hearts or in our existence, imagine how it would be about your own family, about your own people through whom you are born into this world and whose genes you carry here. So, in a way, we all have some kind of an unconscious knowledge about the past here. And we all, uh, we as the following generations, we are not just curious, but we are also taken in or taken over by this past. And as I took the example of this movie Coco, where this young child desperately wants to become a musician, and he stumbles upon his great grandfather, who was actually a musician who went missing. Now, again, from the system, family system of this young boy, if, let us say, nobody alive remembered this great grandfather, nobody knew about his existence, then he will just disappear off. But this disappearing off is not going to affect him so much. Though the movie shows it in a different way, but in real life, it is a point of introspection for ourselves. So if there is nobody who remembers him or what he stands for, this is like a big loss or void for this family system. And like we imagined the piece of paper with certain holes and something missing there, this is exactly what we would be like. And there would be a part of us which would be missing. And we would not know how to connect with this part of our lives. And then this is exactly the part of our lives which gets played out in our life. And we do not know what is taking us over. We do not know why we are playing the same circumstances again and again and again. And why is it that, we can't make sense out of it? And at a logical level, we understand, oh, this is a pattern and I am in this habit of doing something like this, and this is exactly how it happens. But we are not able to come out of it, because the root or the underlying seed of it lies in our own genetics. And till we don't bring this person back into our heart, into our lives, we will be dictated by something which is the missing part of it. It is like whatever is repressed in us has to get expressed. And it's our attempt to bring it back. So the bottom line is we cannot exclude anything. And what remains excluded remains in the unconscious. And the unconscious remains our fate here. Maybe here everything doesn't need to be like a big larger than life example where somebody is getting murdered and something like a big Bollywood project movie. It can also be something very, very simple, intrinsic to us. I mentioned at the beginning when I was introducing myself that I worked in corporates for over 16 years, and then I've been on my own after that, doing my own work. And believe me, for me to take this decision to move on my own was an extremely difficult decision. And it almost to this extent that it created this huge amount of panic in me, and I didn't know how would I go about it. It for me seemed to be like something which was like almost like a death-like situation, because there was huge comfort in working with an organization, and versus completely being on my own made me feel that I don't have a support system there. Now imagine for a moment, if I would, and when I look back at my family history, we all come from people who are hardcore working people. My parents have been working for the government or an organization. All my uncles and aunts work for somebody or the other. And so my grandfathers used to work for a particular organization. So this is the way my family has earned its bread and butter, by working for somebody else, by getting a moment, a piece of security in our heart, by trading a little bit of our independence there. Now, this is not anything about right and wrong. It is just exactly how this family system has been. And so, when somebody like me, who comes from the same family, chooses to go on my own, I find it very, very, very difficult. And compared to that, if I would have come from a very a business family where it's the way of life, and then if you have any friends or colleagues or people that you know, or you happen to be from a family where everybody engages in a business, and what would happen if there was a person who was, let's say, working for an organization? That person would be the odd man out. So here, this is how, very simply, you can call it as culture, way of life, or how we are fated to be. This is how it runs in our blood. And then it's very likely that if somebody from a family like mine, which is not used to engaging in a business or going out becoming entrepreneurs on their own, if a person like this were to fail, everybody around would just tell them, we told you you're not supposed to do this. You're not fated to run a business. And so this is how the word fate comes into our vocabulary here, where the way we are is an extrapolation of the people behind. And so for a moment, I would say that look back into your own family system, at a place where there are certain people whom you cannot see, or who are not talked about, or who, let's say, have just disappeared off. And these can be people, somebody who dies early. And then the death of this person is such a big feeling of grief for us that we cannot talk about that person. And what we do not talk about is eventually gets expressed. They all still live in our own hearts. They live within us here. We are no different from our ancestors or from the people through whom we come into this world. And what all that we are trying to do here is very simply is to bring them back, to complete the whole picture. You can't have a picture with somebody's nose missing. Your focus goes on the part which is missing, and you try to complete that. And then when you try to complete that, you are trying to live a life which does not belong to you. And when you live a life which is not yours, which is not actually yours, you are trying to replicate somebody else's life with the hope that this person is seen by the family and he or she is brought back into the fold. I'll take an example here out of some of the cases that I have worked with. So once I worked with a lady whose grandfather was killed in a different continent. He was killed in an African country. And it seems that there was an altercation, there was a tiff with some of the locals, and he gets murdered there. And then the grandmother comes back home. And then after that, there were already children, which they had earlier. And as these children are growing up, one generation down, this grandfather's grandson goes back to the same country, and he has exactly the same fate that his grandfather had. So in that sense, he replicated his grandfather's life. And then when you go forward to see, the following generations are also not having something which is very easy off. They are also looking at something which is like an element of death here. Now, what is very simply happening is the first event of losing the grandfather was so tragic that the family just chose not to talk about it. and they kept him away. It's like we don't want to talk about this, because when we talk about this, there is no malice here. But when we talk about him, there is so much of pain, and we don't want to see the pain. So the original emotion of pain, sadness, and grief is pushed so deep inside that we have lost connection to that sense or that feeling. And then the grandmother, who originally grieved for this man, doesn't show her grief at all, because she has a huge responsibility here. She has to bring up children, and she feels she doesn't have the time to express or cry or talk to the children about their father. And so she puts this memory away. It's like putting it into a box and burying it far further inside, below somewhere. And then when these children are growing up, they don't have contact with their father. They don't even know what kind of a man he is. But they can feel the unspoken grief of their mother. It's not lost. Energy doesn't get lost anywhere. It changes forms, it changes into something else, but it's not like a magic wand that you can rub it off. And so there is a hole that is created. The hole is of grief, of pain, of hurt, of trauma. And then when these children grow up, through their conscious mind, they have no awareness of this, but unconsciously, they are seeking the father. And they are very much in contact with their mother's grief. And so one of the children then finally says, and this is, mind you, this is all subconscious. This is all happening in the unconscious domain. This is nothing coming from the awareness or the conscious component. If we were conscious, we are not going to say that, okay, I'm going to do something that destructive to me. So now, one child of the family says, I am going to take it upon myself to bring this person back. And so he recreates the life circumstances and the way the death happens. And so through the death, this grandfather, the family is pointed to look at him again. And not just him, the people who have killed him too. And the family is now forced to look at them. And if the family chooses not to look at it, in the following generations, this becomes something bigger. So it's like it starts off with something this small, and you ignore it and it becomes bigger. And then it becomes bigger, and then it becomes bigger. Till at one point you're forced to look at it. So this is how we keep replaying patterns here. I'm going to just take a very small pause here, because and just check in with everyone. How are we doing here? Are there any questions here that I can answer, which is regarding what we have just discussed right now? And maybe I'll just look at a couple of things. Maybe Hitesh, could you help me through here?
Sure. We've had a question, Revati.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm keeping my video off.
No problem. No problem.
Okay. We have a question which says, how do we become aware of this? We just know about few generations of ours. Nobody
Yes.
speaks about the past. So how do we link?
Yes.
How do we find the missing link?
I think that's an excellent question, and that's something that I will be talking about a little down the line. Okay, maybe like in some time. It's very important to discuss this, because otherwise we are just looking at the problem statement and we don't have a solution here. Okay, so maybe Hitesh, maybe in a little while we'll discuss this, and in case I miss it out, please kind of just we'll talk about it. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So here, I think before we proceed ahead, I would like to just do a very small exercise over here. Okay, which is, maybe this is a good place if you are, okay, so one word before we get into this exercise. It's best to do this with your eyes closed, and I will be guiding you through the entire thing. But if for some reason, if you do not feel comfortable closing your eyes, because there are certain circumstances when you close your eyes and you have a lot of negative thoughts coming in, it's better in that case to keep your eyes open. And when you keep your eyes open, you can just keep your eyes fixed on one place right in front of you. You can just imagine a dot or something, or just maybe one something, and you keep your focus only at that point. And that will still help you go through the whole process. And let's say if at any point of time it gets too heavy, you can always open your eyes and just stay with everybody, but don't follow through. This is something that I will request you to just take responsibility for yourself. First is to take care of yourself, of ourselves, because we are doing this work with a huge number of people together. If it is a one-to-one work, we have the freedom of just going down the rabbit hole and chasing it to the place where it comes out of. But if it creates a huge discomfort which you feel you cannot handle, please open your eyes and stay with the group. Okay? So take a few deep breaths here. And it's nice to just kind of open up your breath, inhale through the nose, exhale out through the mouth, and just take like nice 3 huge exhalations through the mouth. And inhale and exhale out. Inhale and exhale out. And one more time, inhale and then exhale out again. And now just come back to your normal breathing. And as you come back to your normal breathing, take your consciousness into your body, inside your body. Lock your awareness inside your body here, so that you become aware of how you're feeling within. And here, just become aware how physiologically you feel. How does the stomach feel? How do you feel in your gut? Is your head throbbing? Or are you feeling this nice light sensation in your body? Is your chest tight? Or are you feeling relaxed? Do not try to change anything here. Everything is fine the way it is, exactly as it is. Just remain in awareness of how you are doing in this moment. That's it. And take a few more, take a couple of deep breaths here. And now, I will ask you to imagine yourself stepping into a huge like circle or bubble of white light. Just picture this bubble or this circle of white light appearing in front of you and step into it. And once you see yourself inside this beautiful bubble of white light, just breathe in deeply and feel the security of inside this bubble of white light. This is your safe space. This is where you remain protected. And just see this bubble of white light is also transparent. So you can see through. You can clearly see what is outside. But you don't have to be affected by what is outside. And so now, keeping your safe space here, we are going to go on a journey. This is a journey not of our past, but very much in our present. We are going to go and visit the hall of our ancestors, the chamber of our ancestors. Our ancestors live inside our body. They are very much present in the cellular, genetic, physiological makeup of our body. And so it is very much the present. This is not about the past. And when you walk into this, move into this big chamber of your ancestors, you are going to see people who are not just passed away, but also the living. And so this is a place where there is no judgment of whether somebody lives or is dead. Everyone has an equal place here. And so now, staying in your bubble of white light, feel yourselves being transported into this vast chamber, and you're there. You're inside this chamber. And just look around you from your bubble. It's a huge place, huge ceiling. And it's a wide, big, open place. And this is a place, the circle, where at your will, when you guide it, it will move exactly in the same place. And so, start taking your attention to the people around that you see. There are some people who are in light, whom you can see very, very clearly. And there are some people who are there in the shadows, maybe not seen at all. And so, first we will go to people whom you can clearly see. And now, the first person that you glide in front of is the mother, the one who gave us birth. And you look at your mother. And as you look at your mother, take a few deep breaths and look into her eyes. And just say these words to her, Mother, I see you. And in this moment, don't expect any fireworks here. This is a very gentle and a very subtle process here that we are doing. And as you look into your mother's eyes, see if she carries any emotions, if she carries any feelings, if she carries any incidences which have been difficult for her, the parts of her life that she has struggled with. She may have spoken to you about this, or she may not have spoken to you about this. And so, in this moment, in your mother's eyes, just see as a third person the emotion and the feeling that she carries with her struggles, her challenges, or whatever that she has gone through. And just tell her, Mother, I see you. And I see what you have gone through. And just take a moment to look at her. And as you look at her, move back. Take a couple of movements back. And once again, recharge yourself with a few deep breaths. And at the next moment, go and stand in front of your father. And as you stand in front of your father, look into his eyes. And when you look into your father's eyes, see for a moment the kind of life he has lived. It doesn't matter if your father is present with you in this life or not. Energetically, they still stand there in front of you. And look into his eyes. And once again, see what emotion, feeling, predominant experience that your father has had in his life. And just say these words to your father, I see you. I can see this experience or the XYZ emotion and feeling in your eyes. I see it. And take a deep breath there. And breathing in and breathing out, take 2 steps back again and move back. And from here on, I will invite you to see somebody else who calls you. Maybe somebody who's there in the shadows. Almost every family has a member of the family who is not talked about, who is ignored consciously or unconsciously, or people that we don't talk about or we don't like. And go and stand in front of this person, and through the shadows, just focus on this person's eyes and take a deep breath there and just see the eyes. Maybe for some of you, you can instantly recognize this person. And maybe some of you might have no recognition of this person. Maybe it's a relative who's passed away too early and you still haven't made a connection there. And it doesn't matter. Do not bring your mind in play here. Just look into this person's eyes and just tell this person, I may not know you or I may know you, but I see you. And just instinctively in this moment, try to gauge what is the emotion in those eyes. Just connect with the emotion and just stay with that. And just check with yourself, are there any first thoughts, first feelings that come into you in this moment when you are looking at this person? What happens? Take that in and then breathe it out. And just stay with those words, I see you. And I see your experience. And I see your feeling. And breathe in and breathe out. And step back into your space again. And go on to the next couple of people on your own. Go to somebody that you feel called to. Look at them. Breathe in and breathe out. And then come back to yourself. And I will hold space here and wait for a moment. And then I will call you back. And every single time, just remember to keep breathing deeply. Your breath is extremely important here. Now in this moment, I will ask all of you to start gathering yourself back in. Come into your own space here. Feel yourself comfortably into that bubble that you are in and start coming back to where you are in the here and now. Start withdrawing back in the here and now. And this huge chamber that you had just visited, just see for a moment, this chamber is nowhere outside, it is inside your own heart. All this is happening right inside you in this moment. It is not something which is outside of you. And with this awareness, just start coming back in the here and now. Feel yourselves back in the body. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel your hands, feel your toes. Wriggle your hands, wriggle your toes. Touch your hands. Move your hands over your body. Just feel your touch, your sensation here. And whenever you wish, you can gently open your eyes. And welcome back. And here, I would like to invite if anybody would like to share their experience. How was it? And once again, this is not some of you may have felt or seen something. Somebody might not see anything. Everything is all right. It's all in our own pace and time. We see what we are ready to see. This is the part that I will talk about a little later. Okay. And so, is there somebody who would like to share an experience here? Hitesh, can you help me here? If
Yeah, I
you
think
can.
anybody, they can unmute themselves. Anybody would like to share?
Yes.
We have Shruti, who said she was crying. It was excellent. Pragati Surana also was going through a lot of emotion.
Okay.
Would anybody like to talk about what they experienced?
Yes. Just speak. And I think when you, yes.
So I was able to see few of my relatives as well who
Okay.
at a very young age.
Okay.
Apparently, I mean, that was a couple. And
Okay.
my bua and my fufa ji. And my bua was at happy place. But after looking at the expression of my fufa ji, I'm slightly stirred because it was sadness, anxiousness that I could see. And
yes,
it just moved me a bit and made me uncomfortable. Like for everyone else, I was feeling
okay.
But this one, I'm not able to come back from the
Okay.
anxiousness that I've seen.
Okay. So, which is why we were in the bubble of white light, because when we go and meet our people from the past, we can be shaken at times. So, which is why you stay in your own bubble and you very clearly see the feeling that he or she goes through. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think that was a very beautiful sharing. And maybe as we talk, maybe some things will tie up. Is there somebody else who would just one more experience that, we can discuss? Yes.
Hi, Revati.
Hi there. Hi, Iram. Iram, just a moment. There is Shruti who's speaking, and I will just finish speaking to her. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Revati. I saw mom and dad, and I saw Chetan. And there was tears in his eyes when I was looking at him, and there were tears in his eye when I was looking at her. But I think with dad, it was very, very joyful. He was in his happy space as always. So
okay. Thank you so much, Shruti. And I think what you speak about people who are very dear to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a real experience. This is happening inside of us. And I will just take one more person here. Iram, you were saying something?
Yes. So for me, it was quite interesting because I saw somebody who I could not recognize. That was one person, some male figure. But other than that, I saw a lot of miscarried children, all the kids who kind of wanted to be seen.
Okay. And so we can already see you're tapping some dimensions here. And maybe sometimes it is enough just to see them. Okay. And great. I think, thank you so much for this sharing. And I'm a little particular about not getting too deep into anybody's sharing here. I respect what you have shared, but going anything deeper means opening something at a very deep personal level. And in that sense, it becomes like a very personal, energetic surgery that we start doing. So we stay a little light here. But from what I have been reading, a lot of what you have shared, we have experiences ranging from something very, very intense to something not being seen. And everything is beautiful, great, exactly the way it is. The ones who saw some people there, either you recognized or you didn't recognize, you saw them at a point of time where your energy being and you as a person was strong enough to be able to take this. Because if you can see from some of your response, for some people it was very intense. It was crying. The lady who just shared first, it shook her up. But right now, you were able to take it in, which is why you were able to see it. And for some people, you were not able to see anything, or quote unquote, if you feel that you were not able to go deep. It happens because we know how to protect ourselves. We were in that energy bubble, and we were able to see only something that we are able to take in. At this point of time, it is extremely mindful not to stir up something so that you're not able to take charge of. And so this is how we learn to protect ourselves. And which is exactly, if I go back to the experience of the lady who lost her husband through a murder in Africa, she represses the whole emotion or the feeling because she is just trying to protect herself. She is just, because the pain and the intensity is so much in that moment that she feels, if I break down, who will look after the children? And I cannot afford to break down. So she stays in her space and she does the best that she can. She is not, there is none of our ancestors who are out there to get us. Nobody wants to pass on a very, very strange, eccentric, wicked, or a very bad future to any of their further generations. Everybody is still just trying to do their best here for us. And yet they do things because they just go as far as they can over there. And in the following generations, somebody comes along who's able to take it in, who's able to bear it. And that is the person who chooses to follow this ancestor's life, replicate the person's fate with the intention of bringing him or her back into the family system. This is all that we are trying to do here. But unfortunately, when we are trying to bring back somebody from the past, we are trying to recreate their lives, we are not in integrity with our own life. So if Revati lives an ancestor's life, what about my life? Am I being true to myself? I'm not. And so this is a place where I will find a big gap between the person who I want to be to the person who I end up doing. Wanting some things, but not, it doesn't happen. It's like a dream that I keep chasing, but I can't grasp it in my hands. And so like this, there are plenty of examples of people here. For example, in India especially, we've had this huge system of zamindari, or people who've been landlords. I'm taking this example because I worked with a few people in this scenario. And 3 generations back, people have owned lands, big landowners. And the 3rd generation, when they come up and they want to work on certain aspects or issues in their lives, we notice what happens is there is nothing particularly wrong there in their lives. But there is a big predominant sense of sadness, something being missing in their lives, something that is not complete. It's almost like there is a pin drop silence which they can't take. And this is almost like an intense emotion that, you can almost cut it through with a knife. And when we explore this in a little deeper way, this is the past, this is a common past of the family that gets revealed, where on one hand, there is a landlord, and on the other hand, there are tenants there. And there is a dynamic which is happening between the landlord and the tenant. Let us not call it good or bad, right and wrong, nice and ugly, beautiful and good. No words here. There is just something which is happening here. And sometimes people who are in a particular situation, they benefit from the other people, and they benefit in a very big way. And so we sort of look at a dynamic which becomes like a perpetrator and a victim. And so the victims look like they have been taken advantage of, and the perpetrators are people who are looking a little larger there. They're getting energy, they're getting money, they're getting a lot of things from the so-called victims. And I use the word so-called because, well, at the end of the day, it's all a play between two people here. And now what happens is, in the next generation of the landlord, maybe the land is no longer there. It no longer remains. And so whatever that has transpired back in the past, there may be secrets, there may be uncomfortable situations, there may be certain strong situations that have happened there, which has impacted the families of the landlords and the tenants in a very big way. So it is something which is knowledge, which is conscious to us. And so this generation, the second generation, has retained this knowledge. But it is not something which anybody is proud of, or there are circumstances, there are things which don't wish to be spoken of. And so we zip up, we don't talk about it. And then in the following generation, the third generation has no idea about anything at a factual level that has happened here. They are clueless, but yet they can feel the dynamic of the family behind. They can feel the incidences behind that have impacted this family. They know that we have gained at the expense of somebody else. And so what happens is, invariably, somebody who, let's say, comes from, let's say, the word, just to make it very clear, somebody who comes from the perpetrator side of the family feels a deep connect to the earlier victims. And this person feels the sadness of that person, because the victims and the perpetrators are bonded together in a very strong way. And this bond is, again, it's a very simple bond. If somebody gives me a lot of money, all of a sudden, which I would love to, I have $1 million in my hand, and my life has suddenly changed after that. And now, for the rest of my life, if I am to thrive and grow these $1 million and enjoy this $1 million in a very nice way, I keep this person who has given me this money with gratitude in my heart. I may not be able to give back exactly the same thing to this person, but I can balance. We are all looking at balance at the end of the day. I can balance this receiving from this person by taking this person into my heart and keeping my sincere gratitude there. I cannot give this back to you, but this has made my life beautiful. And thank you so much. So every time I spend this money and I enjoy this money, I remember you in my heart. And I bless you for giving something such beautiful to me. And so this is how I bring back the balance. And then for my family, this person has become a part of us. This is not a genetic bond. This is just very simply a very logical bond which is created because I have benefited from this person. And when we receive something in a very beautiful way, we talk about it. We say that, okay, this is how we got blessed and this is how we received it. And then we talk about them, and then we give them a place in our lives. We give them a place in the portrait, in a picture there. This is a way of carrying them forward. But if it is the other way around, if the family has benefited by taking away something from somebody, this is not something that people are going to talk about. It is like a secret that is getting created. And a secret has a very huge energy. And so the family zips up, but the following generations cannot let the victims go as well. And so they find themselves standing closer to the victims, which means if you just hypothetically imagine a person whose money is being taken away, if somebody is, can you hear me? I think something just dropped there.
Yes, Revati, we can hear you.
Thank you. I think the phone just fell off.
No problem.
My fidgetiness, I can't just sit in one place. Okay, so so imagine for a moment somebody has benefited from at somebody else's expense and no one talks about it, and now someone else from the perpetrator's family will feel exactly the same way where the victim and the family felt. They are replicating the inner environment. If it's sadness or if it's a feeling of loss, it's the same feeling of loss that gets created. But there is no logical reason in the family so as to say, but yet these people also belong. And so, and on the other hand, uh, this affects just as strongly to the so-called victim side of the family as well. And so, if the emotion has been of intense anger, how dare you take this away from me? And you know what would happen is if you just met somebody in the middle of the street and that person just gave you one tight slap on your face, and you would be shaken up, and maybe you would be very angry. How dare you do this to me? And so something in a very similar way from the victim side of the family also, they are holding on to this anger, and it's not spoken about. And then a little later from their family, they grows up to be somebody who's very aggressive and who is angry without a reason, an always angry person. So this person is more strongly related to the perpetrators, and from the perpetrator's side, from the victim. And so this is how both these families are actually coming together as one complete unit here. And this is exactly how uh, you know the system also comes to a balance eventually. uh, I think there was a question here which I would just like to attend to. Somebody asked that, you know, how do I really get to know that something like this is happening to me in my life? In most of the situations, it first begins with a feeling that, you know, this is not my life that I'm leading. Or why am I finding myself doing things again and again and again? Or at times there is also feeling of feeling confused, feeling one particular emotion very, very strongly. And yes, it generally takes a little bit of work to figure out whether I am carrying on something on behalf of somebody else or not. Uh, if it's any solace, there are sometimes there are people who live their entire lives in a pattern and don't realize it. And sometimes people just, you know, you reflect back upon it and you realize it. So it does require a little bit of self-search, a little bit of, you know, trying to delve a little deeper into your own psyche to find out where. It's like, you know, you have to chase the tail a little bit. If you're not satisfied with something about your life, you need to be a little bit more of a researcher to find out where exactly this comes from. Just the very simple question to ask yourself, where does this come from, is enough. And then you will in all probability be guided further here to know the next step. So yes, in the short run, it's a little challenging to know how exactly am I going to be there. Because it's like saying that if I'm sitting in that black dot where if you imagine that, you know, everything is dark around me, I'm not likely to know much here. But then over a period of time, I suddenly become aware of my own emotions and I just realize, oh, I'm a very angry person. So let me look at the source of where this comes from. And that is how you very simply chase the tail here. You try to find the key here. It is just a very simple process of what we call as self-development. Some people can call it self-awareness. Some people can call it as a spiritual path. You can call it anything that you wish to term it as. And probably this is one place where a lot of philosophies, ancient philosophies kind of come together. So even if you kind of, you know, technically say what is the definition of yoga, you know, the way yoga is described in the Yoga Sutras is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means releasing the modifications of your mind or, you know, your inner tendencies. But my inner tendencies are very closely linked to my first few early years of my life, my time in my mother's womb, and then through my parents and my ancestors and everybody there, the whole big family tree. I am connected to all of them. And if the tendency has become weaker over a period of time, I will not be impacted that strongly. But if the tendency is very strongly entrenched, I will be taken over by it. And one at a time, when I slowly work on each and every single one of them, I start feeling lighter and lighter. This is where, again, you start meeting your own true self. You start resonating with the person that you truly are. And I'm sure we all have, you meet people who seem very light, who seem very spontaneous. In all probability, you're looking at somebody who's very, very synchronous and in integrity with themselves, with their own energies. If, as a person, if I'm carrying something on behalf of my father or my mother or any of my ancestors, and if I'm trying to replicate my life, I am not going to be 100% content with what I am doing. Because if it was not good enough for them, it's never going to be good enough for me. It is very presumptuous on my part to try and complete something for people behind me who are far larger and who are far bigger than me. And when I walk on this path, I am fated to live on a path. I am fated, in a sense, with the heavy word fate here, for the lack of any better words here. I am struggling against something which is too huge for me. It's like me as a child in a big house, and in relation to my own tiny small size as a child, the room or the house looks so much bigger that I feel very helpless there, and I am taken over by something else. And so there are larger chances that I am looking at something which is not my fate. Because as a person, I need to be true to myself over here. The day I meet who truly I am, life becomes a lot more enjoyable for me. I do things with a certain amount of lightness. And of course, I also go through the usual struggles of life. But as I mentioned at the start, I am meeting them eye to eye. Even if I see failure, if I take up a venture and I fail there, I have failed. The failure and me are looking at each other eye to eye. It's not larger than me, it's not smaller than me. And I can do something about it. When I meet my own success over here, I meet it eye to eye. Success and failure probably will be like good old friends for me. And they coexist with me. But if my success that I receive, so just as we receive fate in a different kind of a context, we also receive huge blessings from our ancestors. So if I am getting success which is being passed on over to me, I am receiving something which is not completely my due. I have not earned it. I mean, take an example. If you're working and suddenly you, out of the blue, you get like a triple promotion at your work and you get triple the pay hike. Hypothetically, you're going to love this. Oh, I'm just looking forward. I want this kind of a situation. But imagine if suddenly from a manager who is not even leading a team of 1 or 2 people to you suddenly become the head of the department of a unit where you're going to be leading 100 people and you are earning like an outrageous amount of salary, what would your inner feeling be? The first feeling that comes in, am I going to be able to do justice to this? And now success weighs very heavily on me. And because success is received through a stroke of good fortune, I have not earned my way to it. I have not deserved that success. I am also scared of losing my success. And I'm constantly vigilant. And while I have just shown a hyper jump in the salary and the promotion, this can also apply to even a little bit more success that is received. And we, at an intrinsic level, we know what we deserve. I mean, back in my human resource days, when I look back, if somebody, we needed to exit out somebody in very polite, using just a very polite language, if somebody needed to be exited out of an organization, what is the best thing to be done was to put the person on the bench, take away all the roles and responsibilities and nothing, and just pay money at the end of the month. In most of the circumstances, the person leaves and goes because the heart cannot take it. At the heart, the person knows at a deep level, I have not earned this. And what I have not earned, I would rather let it go away. And so just as we invite failure, we can also invite success. And that is not success which is standing on solid feet. It's something which is a little shaky here. So that is about a little bit about success and failure to do with fate. And so once again, before I proceed a little further, I'm going to do a very small check-in over here as to how is everybody doing here. Are there any top of the line burning questions here or any clarifications which need to be given here? Yes?
Ganesh here from Mumbai.
Yes, Ganesh. Yes, Ganesh.
It is a very interesting subject that you have broached upon.
Uh-huh.
But I have one question.
Yes.
And that is, you mentioned about, like the future generation living the life of the ancestors.
That's right.
Because maybe it was an unpleasant event and not meriting, any discussion or publicity. Now,
okay.
The confusion that I have is, if we say that that past event was painful or shameful, whatever it may be, how do you explain the fact that on the one hand, if you repress it, it gets expressed later on at some point in time?
Right.
But on the other hand, if it is a painful event, and if we keep talking about it, discussing about it, don't you feel that, we are living with it so that, we don't, move on in our life?
Okay.
So I am finding it a dilemma in this. Like, how do you handle this?
Okay, great. And I thank you for bringing this out because it's not about giving the past any amount of publicity or talking or discussing it. Sometimes just staying, venting it out again and again and again is not going to settle the past. What I'm talking about it is as a more of an inner movement. Okay. Okay, as an inner movement. Let me just try thinking of an example over here. I once worked with a girl who said that, a young girl who said that, she was fated to have boyfriends who left her very, very abruptly. Everything seemed to be going well and the person disappears off. Now, as we probe a little further, what shows up is, just a very simple question. How are you with your mother? She says, I'm fantastic with my mother. And so she stands very, very close to her mother, almost like holding her mother's hand very tightly. And when the query comes, how is it about your father? I have got nothing to do with about my father. He doesn't exist for me. Okay, so we now know something that has happened there. Now, when you go back into the past of this family, the father had left the mother for another woman. He just left her and he moved on. Okay. Now, from the mother's point of view, the mother was not somebody who ever expressed what she truly felt there. Now, this is not about acting your emotions out when there is nothing. But the inner emotion of the mother was of deep pain and hurt and anger at the same time. If the mother is very, very synchronous with her own emotions, and it is not about her telling her daughter, the harm here has been done when she's telling the daughter that, oh, your father is a very bad guy there to have left me like that. So this is not about talking out or doing a publicity of it, but this is an emotion that she has suppressed so far within her own system that she herself is not aware that it exists for her. And yet it exists. And how does the daughter pick it up? Even if the mother doesn't say it, at an intrinsic level, the mother's behavior has changed. This is not a mother who's a very soft, comforting, loving mother. See, touch communicates love. And so when the touch is felt, it is not the touch of a woman who feels very, very secure in her life, who feels free to love. It's the touch of a woman who maybe is a little nervous and who's a little frozen, who's aware of her own loss. And so this is how the daughter takes it in an unspoken way into her system. And she then replays out a similar circumstance in her life in just a very, very simplistic way, so as to speak this. So this is not about publicity. This is not about talking. Sometimes talking excessively can create more harm. Too much of talking means the person is actually in a secondary emotion. Secondary emotions are emotions which don't belong to you. They belong to somebody else. And so I can keep crying and grieving for the rest of my life of something that I lost maybe early in my life, or, you know, maybe at some point of time in my life. But when I am in a primary emotion, I can feel the intensity of it. It is like the movie story that you see, and that makes that, you know, that allows the tears to flow through your eyes. And it just flows. You're not trying to do anything. And versus that, a secondary emotion is like, it's very ho-hum. Somebody is talking their story, but I'm not really too interested in it. It just goes on and on and on and on. So that is the difference over here. So I don't know, how do you feel about this, Ganesh?
Yeah. But then, yes, I do see your point. But taking this very example that you mentioned, don't you think for any woman, okay, particularly the, let's say, earlier generation woman, or even the current generation woman, you know, separation is a very painful event, right?
Yes, yes.
So it is but natural for that lady to have, you know, felt that anger, pain, you know, whatever it is. So how does one handle that? Because there's no way, okay, there's no publicity here, I know. It's not worth talking or telling her daughter, I agree. But at that mother's or that woman's level, at the deepest level, this is something which has hurt her or pained her.
Exactly.
So this feeling is going to remain.
Exactly. That's exactly the point here, Ganesh. That what she has gone through, the pain remains. If a person is synchronous with the pain and in integrity with the pain, and is in awareness, the pain is not pushed down, but the pain is in awareness. See, it's like there is no substitute here. If she has lost the husband, she has lost the husband. This is again not about right and wrong, and the pain will remain in her heart. And maybe she may never get over it. And that's exactly the point, that, you know, the pain remains, but she's aware of it and she's honest about it. Versus pretending that there is no pain there. I am fine. What happened was really perfect, and it doesn't affect me at all. That is the challenge here. And yes, this is a challenge here. I think this when we go back to tie up with the earlier question, that yes, there are many incidences in the lives of our family and our ancestors and the whole family soul, so as to say, that have impacted us. But this is not a moment to feel that, oh my God, what am I going to do about it? This still shapes us as to who we are. And this is another aspect about fate, where it is something which is larger for us. And we surrender to what is, we surrender to how we have been shaped, and then we are not in resistance to it. We are in agreement to it. And when we agree to something, that itself opens up the next chapter or the next path for us. So this is a journey that we all do. And this happens over a period of time. So, yes.
Okay, thank you, Revati.
Welcome.
Revati, in the interest of time, it's 7:30 already.
Okay.
We have another half an hour. I'm presuming you have a couple of more process, one more process that you're going to take.
Yes, there is one more process that I would like to do here.
And do we read the question and answers for after that? There are a few
yes, that's great, because that's what I was going. And I think I'm really happy about the questions, because there were certain parts that we wish to discuss, right, which just came out very beautifully through the questions here. So, so assuming everybody is ready to go ahead here.
I guess so.
Super. Okay. So what we will do is, I would just, before we move into the next phase of it, I would just ask everybody to just close their eyes and breathe in and breathe out, and just take a few deep breaths and empty yourselves out here. We've spoken a lot, and a lot of the processes that we are doing here right now are very subtle. They are like planting a very small seed inside, and then the seed grows at its own time and pace. And if we try to push something, and if you're going to try pulling a plant out, it's going to die. And versus if we are going to want it to grow too fast and you're going to throw a lot of water, it's going to die. So we just leave it there. So which is, once in a while, you just breathe a little and then you empty yourself out. And then you just kind of sort of also forget about a lot of things that we've spoken. Because whatever that we have spoken about here today, if it is essential to you, it will remain in you. If there is something that resonates or strikes the right chord, you don't need to go back and remember it. And if it doesn't make any sense to you, you can just let it go here. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the next process here. And for this, again, this is a visualization. And for this visualization, I will once again invite you to close your eyes or keep your eyes open, whatever is comfortable for you. And on the exhale, I think I was muted for a moment. And on the inhale and exhale out. And on the exhale, close your eyes. And as you close your eyes here, picture yourself standing exactly the way you are. The same height, the same features, the same body as you have, exactly as you have it here. And I want you to visualize standing behind you, on your right side, your father, and on the left side, your mother. But when your father and mother stand behind you, they are double your height. If you're this much, your parents are this much, and they stand right behind you. And so now we are going to keep building up the family lineage here. Behind your father stand his parents. Behind your mother stand her parents. But now they are double the height of your parents. So you are standing in an increasing order of size here. And let this picture increase for you. Each of your grandparents has their parents standing behind them, but double their height. And so for a moment, right behind you, feel your 7 generations of people standing, all in an increasing size of double, 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 double. And in that increasing order. And far out behind them, there is a big screen. It's like almost like the horizon, and the sky and the earth, top to the bottom. And you can feel this huge horizon, which is of shining light. And this is the source of life itself. This is the beginning of life here. And behind your 7 generations, this is exactly the life which was passed on to each of you. And just visualize for a moment, you have a very at your heart, and there is a small window to the heart. And that window, it receives light from back and projects it out through the front. So it is like a channel. This window is creating a channel. And each of your 7 generations of your ancestors behind you, all of them have that window at their heart, that channel through which life flows through to them. And so you stand in your own place with this big towering mountain standing behind you. Each of them having that channel, receiving the source of life into them and passing it on through them to you. And you can just feel it reaching you at your physical level. And then you can also observe that each of these 7 generations of people are just merely passing on life to the next one. They do not have the capacity to add anything to it or anything or subtract anything less than it. It is just life as it is. It is the same light that is getting passed on. None of them have anything more devices of their own that can increase that flow of light. And even if they try, it is exactly the same light which gets passed on. And so, for the next few moments, you can just stand there receiving this flow of life into your body. Just feel it reaching your body through all these enormous people, giants, who stand in front, behind you. And as this light starts filling up your body, start sensing if your body has any black spots, holes, where you are leading somebody else's life. And you just start filling up this life completely into your body, till the moment you start radiating light. And now you are radiating so much of light. After you have filled yourself up completely with this light of life, you are now through the window, through your heart, sending out the light ahead of you. And if by any chance you have children, you can pass this light on to your children and let them receive this light from you and let them fill themselves up completely. And even if you don't have children, you can still keep sending the light forward. And as you send this light forward, become aware of your own life standing in front of you. It's like this light that you're projecting out through your heart is taking the shape of your own life. And this is life in its entirety. This is not a small aspect of life, which is your career or your children or your relationship or how much money you make. This is life in its completeness. And so this is the light that you project onto your life. And when you stand like this with your life, nothing in between, you and your life, you have a good chance of being in integrity with yourself. And just look at your life looking at you. And just become aware of how your life looks at you. And here again, everyone will have a very personal response to life. For some, it will be sadness. For some, it will be play. Some, it will be joy. Just come in contact with your life here. And breathe in deeply there. And then, for a moment, I will ask you to turn around and look at all your ancestors standing behind you, including your parents. And just from your small place, look up at them, how big they are. And because they stand in a certain way, you have the ability to see each one of them. And look at all of them and feel your smallness in front of them. Are you in a position to really help any one of them? You come from them. You have not created them. You have not passed on life to them. You can be of service to them. But can you really take up some of the bigger challenges that they have faced in their life? This is just a question being thrown at you. And then you can come back into your own small place and stand there as a child of the family. And a child is very open to receiving. And you can open your hands to receive from all of them. If you try to give anything to them, your hands are going to turn into a blessing hands, which means everything that you are trying to receive just falls off. And there is nothing that is getting accumulated in your hands. And so just stand there and receive everything that you can receive from them. And just let your inhalations and exhalations help you there. Inhale deeply into your body. And when you exhale, let it settle into your body. And then you can take your hands to your heart and take all of them into your heart. This is a good place where you're completing the family tree in your heart. And tell each one of them, beginning with your parents, I honor your fate. Everything that you went through has made you the person that you are. And the person that you are is my father and my mother. If you would have been anything different, I might not have been born. I would not have been me. So thank you for being exactly how you are and who you are. And if you wish, you can move your head down in a very small bow to show your respect towards them. And taking this huge family into your heart, you can now turn around and look at your life. And your life, in a way, is being powered by the light which flows through all your ancestors through you. And so this life is a blessing that comes from them. But yet, it comes straight from the source. It is not filtered. It is as it is. And you can keep your contact with your life and take a small step towards your life if you wish to. And even if you take a step towards your life, you are not moving away from your ancestors. Wherever they stand, they are so tall that they can still pass light to you. And you stay with your focus on your life. And seeing your life, looking at it deeply through your eyes, taking that in, start coming back, start breathing into your body, start becoming aware of your own self, becoming aware of where you are, how you're sitting. Shift your body if you wish to, and come back in the here and now, alive with everybody within you, in your heart. And take a deep breath here. Okay, so any feedback? How was this exercise?
It was really beautiful experience. It was a really beautiful experience.
Thank you so much.
Especially love the part where you were so connected with your parents, the grandparents, and looking at them and how you are actually in scale, but in how much you can receive.
Wonderful.
And it was an amazing, it was like a feeling of being blessed and showered with a lot of love, and it felt very light.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You're welcome. That's exactly when you feel, this is exactly an example of blessings being passed over, or just simply the light of life being passed over to us. When we are in this place of being small in front of our family, we are less likely to carry somebody else's fate on our shoulders. And I can stay light as a child. A child is free. A child is innocent. And that is what leaves us free. And when we stay in that state, I can look at my life at the same eye level. And then I'm prepared to pass it on further. When I have grown so much, I pass life on to my next generation, or I create something of my own. And so that is how the cycle of life moves on.
Yeah, it was a great experience, Revati.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Felt very connected to whatever was being said, and I hope to see more webinars from your end.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Forward to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Revati.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful to hear this.
Yeah, Revati.
Yes.
It was a beautiful experience. Like I told you yesterday, I was thinking about it since a day or two, something, and immediately, morning your message came. I said, wow, it's a wish come true. And it was a beautiful experience.
That's
just mind blowing.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you seek. When you seek, you receive it. I think somebody asked a question there, Eileen, which says, what is this exercise called? Honestly, I have no words to say what is this exercise called. So I think let's just leave it nameless, so as to say.
Revati, will the webinar be available later in case I need to forward it to some other people I know? Will there be a link available to today's webinar?
Hitesh, would you?
It will be available.
Yeah. Great, superb. So you have it there, so you can.
Yes, you will get an email.
Yeah. So I think this is. Yes, he said yes. It will be available.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
So, are there any questions here because we have some time here that we can talk about any questions, because questions are beautiful. It just helps us to clarify, and somebody else's experience also touches us in such a deep way.
Revati, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, for example, we are born in different soul groups and across different, continents or generations or whatever, different families.
Right.
So now, if in this lifetime I've chosen this particular family, so it's because of the genetic, all these things get passed on, because in some last lifetime I was in probably Africa or maybe America.
Okay, good. I love your question.
Thank you. Because it's been there. I have seen a couple of my own past lives, so I know
lovely
few lives I've lived.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a beautiful question, because I'm sure a lot of us would also be having this question, because when I started off on this work, I had this question for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to make a little distinction. There is always a question of semantics behind how you describe anything. So for people, see everything. Okay, so this is one perspective here. We have to see everything with the right perspective. So for me, I am looking at it in the ancestral way. I mean, I'm calling it as, I am looking at it through the lens of systemic work, family constellation. So what of my ancestors past am I carrying? And so on and so forth. Somebody who's a past life regression therapist will be calling them as past lives. Maybe a family constellator or somebody who does work like me might say this is actually your ancestor's life. So yes, and we are a family guru. So when you can choose to call it as a soul group, or you can choose to call it, see, we are one soul as a family. And so this is a question of semantics here. And then another point here is that depending on the system in which I am, I will behave in that way. If I'm sitting with my group of my family members, I will behave in a certain way with them. And if I am sitting with my group of friends, I will behave very differently with them. And if I am with my work group, I will be different with them. And I do this so that I can find my own belonging in each of their group. Being a part of different groups is what actually develops me. It's like an example here that, when I was in my corporate life, you just do see a lot of incidences of people smoking and having these chai breaks and coffee smoking breaks where a lot of strategies are getting discussed there.
Yeah.
Now, I used to get the maximum amount of complaints from people who used to feel singled out. They used to say, you know what, I don't smoke and I hate partying on Friday night. And I feel I get penalized if I don't join that group, that smoking group, because now I'm going to miss out on the strategy discussion and I don't want to take that secondary smoke inside me. So my belonging is getting threatened here. And guess what? This person, such people who can't find their belonging, choose to find another job and then move on, or stay there and get bitter. So we change, we adapt to the system, and each of these systems is there for us to learn and grow as people. Our family group, our work group, our friends group. So which is why our community that we come from, every community has a certain history. If you look at the history of a certain maybe community who has come from, who has gone through a huge migration, that migration has a lot of stories embedded there. And what for should we speak about our bitter experiences? And it's embedded there. And so there is a learning there. And so the moment I choose to be born in this lifetime in the particular way, and so this is where I kind of feel that a lot of different philosophies meet very beautifully. In where I studied yoga, in the Yoga Sutras, which talks about a lot of essence of life, there is a sutra which says that the circumstances of your current life are dictated by your family, the family in which you are born, the place where you're born, and the time period you are born in. I'm born in Kali Yuga, I can't behave like a big dharmatma here. I have to be in balance with the time of this time or this era. Or if at a more practical level, if I join a company which is very cutthroat in competition, and it's like a dog-eat-dog world there, and my survival is, everybody's survival is at stake there. And if I suddenly start acting like this, this really nice person who doesn't step on anybody's toes, and I'm very giving, I will not be able to survive that. So in that environment, I am learning cutthroat survival. And then once my experience is completed, I have integrated that.
Yeah.
Then I can choose to move on to something else. So each of them are there for a reason. And yes, you talked about past lives. In this work, it's not always that we see ancestors showing up. Sometimes I can also see some part of my childhood also playing out. Let's say, for example, if as a child, the younger we are, and the younger we are when our basic needs are not met, they end up having a huge impact on our life. For example, if a baby who's 6 months old and the baby is not held by the mother, she does not receive the mother's touch or the father's touch. Now, touch is the only way the baby understands love. It's the soft voice of the parents, especially the mother, and the touch communicates love here. So at this moment, no amount of intellectual talk is going to help the baby. It's that basic need of love that needs to be met. Now, versus a child who's 10 years of age. At 10 years of age, the need of that child is very different. Now, if a mother decides to just hug and touch a 10-year-old all the time, it's going to be very uncomfortable for that child. Here, the need is very different. The need is of being seen. The need is of being able to be somebody. I am an identity of my own. I have my autonomy here. I can go out. I can do stuff on my own. So this child of 10 years needs encouragement. So at the age of 6 months, if the touch is missing from the mother, there is a void of love. And this child will grow up seeking love from somewhere else. And as a 10-year-old, it's discipline, it's autonomy. If that is not given at that time, it will have a bigger impact. But for a brief moment, which is going to have a deeper impact? Missing touch as a 6 months or missing that discipline, autonomy, and significance as a 10-year-old? Just think for a moment, which is more important? Sorry?
The touch.
Exactly, Aarti. It's the touch which is important. So the younger we are and the need is unmet, the more it plays out. So this is also something that we are able to observe here. And yes, then we go back to the family dynamics, and then we are always able to go back to the exact point from where it began. And then there are some very few times where we actually get a sense of past lives coming up in this work. But they do also come. And the moment a past life comes up in a work like this, you can sense it from the shift in energy. It is not something which is coming in from this age. You can feel that space there, and yet it affects you very deeply. So in a sense, this work encompasses through, it's work in a timeless dimension. Whatever affects you in the here and now will show up. If it doesn't need to show up, if it doesn't affect you, it will not show up. I mean, somebody can always say that, okay, my grandfather passed away very early. Coincidentally, when the whole pandemic and the lockdown happened, me and my mother were just talking about this, and I realized that I have a great grandfather who died in the 1918 Spanish pandemic. Now, does it affect me right now? I do not know, because but if I should just choose to work upon it, it may not even show up for me, because if it doesn't affect me, it will not show up. So whatever is bothering me, which is creating an energy diversion in me, it will show up. So we just trust, and then we go along the way. Yeah.
Revati, we have a ton of questions on my chat. I think
I have
at least a lot of questions on my chat.
Okay.
And we're running out of time. Can we do two last questions? Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
So I think Sabira already has a question. We'll go with Sabira.
Yes,
and
Sabira,
then I'll ask one more.
Yeah.
Sure,
when you receive light,
yes,
I felt it was an affirmation of who I am.
Okay.
And that kind of brings about an acknowledgement which was so far missing.
Exactly. And so Sabira, yes, please go on.
So it is a very exhilarating experience.
And because you're welcome, Sabira, and because it's so exhilarating and I can see you're moved by emotions, I would like you to stay with these emotions. And you can tell yourself, I exist. I have my place here. Because nobody can take away our place. It is just how it is. And so fantastic. That's beautiful to hear that.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one, maybe two.
Please go ahead.
Two last questions.
Yes.
One of them was very interesting. That's asked about. I'm just trying to look at the question in the chat. Where actually the question was Revati about when a husband and wife get married. Do you also take what happens about the fate that the husband and wife go together?
I love this question because this is, you know what, this is the problem in not having a PPT, because you, in the flow of things, you forget to talk about it, and then people come up with these very beautiful questions. When you get married to somebody else, you are not just getting married to one person. I'm not saying, okay, there is a distinction here. I'm not saying you're marrying the entire family, but you are also coming together with a person and you agree to the fate of the person exactly how it is. This is the other side of the coin of the word fate, and which is why it's good to stay human and it's good to stay humble. No matter how much of this work I may do, yet there will be parts of my life which will be taken over by something which is larger than me. That is my journey in my life. So when I come across a partner or a friend or a husband or sometimes an organization or whatever, it's not my bloodline, but yet I agree to their fate exactly how it is. What does this mean in an actual circumstances? This means if you're married to a partner and the partner is very, very close to his own parents, his or her own parents, can't think beyond them, you agree to the person's fate. If you lose a partner very earlier on in life, or the partner tells you we cannot be together, there is something compelling also coming in from the partner's family system that does not allow him or her to stay there. And there is something compelling from your side of the family system. That is why the stories match here. And in this place, you agree to their fate as it is, which means you do not try to change them. Much of our time and efforts are spent in trying to change other people around. When we try to change others around us, we are spending less efforts on ourselves. And so I am not the significant person in my life. The other is the important person in my life. My own core has gone missing. And so in times like this, I feel it best to turn this child towards the parents, their own parents. Because the first feeling of significance that you get is from your father and your mother. You are the center of their lives. And so when you are trying to change somebody else's fate, or you're not in agreement to the kind of person he or she is, you are trying to resist something which is beyond you here. And it may be that you're trying to change your parents, which is again something which is an impossible here. And honestly, this is such an interesting topic that I find it difficult to zip up over here, because you know this is something very intense here, and we spend a lot of our energy here in trying to change other people. But the bottom line here, in closing, I would say, if there is a person and you get married, have a partner, whatever you wish to call it, it is not about that bond of marriage, but the bond of a companion that you have created, and something is amiss and the relationship no longer works for you, and you have given it the best. And what is the right thing to do here? Either to stay with the person and accept the person as he or she is, or choose to move on. You look at the man or the woman as your equal, not higher, not lower than you. When you try to change somebody, you're treating that person as a child. Parents try to change children. Not ideal, but this is how it happens. So you don't treat your partner as a child, and nor do you treat your partner as a parent, which means that, you know, I have enough and more people saying, oh, this relationship sucks, but please do something so that this person is fixed up and, you know, he or she is the ideal loving person for me. I'm sorry, you're searching for a parent there. You're not looking for a partner. So in closing, you respect their fate exactly as it is. Okay, I've said quite a lot about this.
Yes,